This is episode 23, slok 28, chapter 2 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita that we are meditating on. I say meditating on because these scriptures are not merely to be listened with our ear, but rather they are to be listened with our heart. This is a spirituality and only a spirit can understand. So at least we need to concentrate on it in the beginning. Pay full attention uh, with our mind, our heart, our organs, our eyes and ears, all focused towards singular goal. Because in spite of concentrating, it is very difficult to understand. So certainly we will see that if we do the best, Lord will help us to do the rest. This is the experience of the saints. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhanani eva tatra ka paridevana. Shri Krishna knows what is going on in the mind of Arjuna. He is concerned about the destruction that might occur if the war goes on. So he is explaining to him that the bhutani means all the creatures are in the beginning avyakta, means they do not manifest, they are in the seed form. They manifest in the middle state, and again at the end they go back to the state that is unmanifest. We may call the death of the body unmanifest because then the body does not exist. Before birth also the body did not exist. What we are trying to say here is what did not exist in the beginning and at the end does not also exist in the middle. What exists in the middle is only an appearance. So this is one thing we want to know, because if it is not continuous, ever existence, then we know it is not Atman, but it is body, or it is related with the creation that has changes. It was not there, then it manifested in the middle, then again it unmanifested. So that can happen only to the body, mind or intellect, or anything that is created. Let us take a look at the example of an ornament. If we look at a chain or a ring or a bracelet, in the beginning it was not a bracelet, it was gold. And from the goldsmith makes a bracelet which has name and form, which we would call it a body. Then at the end, when it wears out or it breaks or it is molded, and then again it turns into gold. So it was gold in the beginning, it turns gold in the end, but in the middle there is that name and form. The name was bracelet and the form was round. Similarly, the body that has come from the Atman, in the beginning it did not have the form, it was simply Atman. Now it has become a body, and then again it turns or enters into the Atman, just like a river that was not in the beginning, only the ocean was in the beginning. Then it becomes river, and again the river ends up in the ocean. So what we see in the middle, the name and the form, or the river and its form, of course, is simply a perishable thing. It is its nature, and therefore Lord says, why should we grieve on these changes that are inevitable? Whether we like it or not, this is one of the things God alone knows. He has made it that way. Our job is to simply understand what is happening and accept it, what we see or we experience. We all experience what we are talking about. There is nothing new. We know that we were not in existence before we were born. We also know that our parents who have passed away do not exist today in body, and we shall be going through the same thing. And yet Arjun, knowing these facts, temporarily has forgotten, and of course, forgetfulness is one of the biggest cause of our grief. It is the grief. It is the grief. The grief that can only be removed if we understand these principles and act accordingly. We will be seeing what Lord is going to help us understand this, our very situation through which we are going nowadays. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschit enam, ascharyavat vadati tatha eva chanya, ascharyavat cha enam anyaha shrunoti, shrutva api enam vedana cheva kaschit. Now, true, Lord Himself admits that some of the people, very few people, look upon the self with a marvel. They marvel when they think about it. This is the slok number 29 that we are talking about, in which Lord says that it is a strange thing. Strange means whenever we feel something strange, that means it has not come within our experience yet. And since Atma is not going to be coming in the experience of our organs, it always remains strange. It is something we have never seen, we will never see, but we hear, we understand it. It surprises us. Surprise means we have not experienced or seen it before. So very few who understand this little bit, they look upon Atman as marvelous. Some of them speak about it as wonderful, and others who talk about it or hear about it also say it is wonderful, because it is wonderful. If we understand that there is no death, there is always happiness, there is always joy, there is no depression, there is no work to do, you are always in peace and happiness and joy. If we can ever imagine that state, which sometimes for a split second we experience, but then as soon as we experience it passes away. If it continues, then we will be amazed that without paying any price whatsoever, it was our nature. So these things, even though some of them do speak, look upon it or hear with wonder, some of the people, even though they hear about it, do not understand it at all. And so Lord Himself says here that this is a subject that is very difficult to understand. Many people will hear it, we try to understand, we are sincere, but since we have never been told, we have never experienced this thing, we sometimes have doubts. It is a strange land, it is a strange path. Obviously, we have doubts. These are the things that we do expect it. It has been said by saints that to understand Atman, there was a saint named Kabir, and he said that all the people in the world are blind. Whom can I teach? And he did not give any exception whatsoever. So you can imagine a man who has realized God. Mirabai said the same thing to the Rana, that there is not a single good man in your kingdom, not one. And so, and there was another reference also, I was reading a Bible in which St. Paul said in Romans 3, 9, 18, that all are guilty. All are guilty. As it is written, there is none righteous. No, not one. There is not one man in this world who is righteous. Now, when they make these statements, we are shocked. Some of them probably we have never heard of it. They don't make statements in vain. We don't like it because we are included in the group of ignorance. We are included in the group of guilty, because all are guilty, he says, including himself. These are the things that should not then in future surprise us if we feel that we don't understand because we are part of this Maya or ignorance. We are in ignorance, we will remain in ignorance until we realize God. This is the thing, therefore, instead of arguing whether this is understood or not, it is right or wrong, the wisest thing to do will be to do what God is going to tell us to do. God is not going to ask us to understand what is He talking about. He is going to tell us what to do in order to understand. And if you will do, which we all can do, I think He is going to come down to our level, like mother would come down to the level of the child, and we simply begin to start there, and the rest will be added, or rest will be the responsibility of God. Then I think that we would have our problem solved. Unfortunately, we simply want to sit there, just listen, and hope that everything will be done just because we listen, or we attended a lecture at the temple or an ashram, or that we have read a book, Bhagavad Gita or scriptures. No, it is not the reading only or listening. That is only a first step. I think we should not only carefully listen, we should meditate on it, and nididhyasanam, shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam. There are three stages in the Upanishad. First, listen carefully, and listening means not with the ear but with your heart. That means with faith. That means even if you don't understand, your good sanskar hopefully will say, even if I don't understand, I am going to sit there and listen. Someday I will understand, if not today. Arjun is at least doing the same thing. Duryodhana did not do. That's the difference between the wise, the worldly wise and the worldly unwise. We are talking about worldly wise. Worldly wise are those who are ignorant, but at least they have that much wisdom that if we listen, if we meditate, if we study, and if we actually do what Lord tells us to do, then someday we'll come out of it. So for one there is hope, and for the other who is not going to listen at all, there is absolutely no hope. Until they come to the same stage someday in some birth where they will also feel that we had enough of the detours, enough of suffering, enough of ignorance, and that we really want to have peace, which is the nature that we all looking for, and then they will also travel on the same path. So here then, what we are talking about is that this is a strange thing. You should not be surprised. Just bear with it. Hopefully, we all have to do this thing now or later. Someday, God will grace us. We haven't got anything easy in life. We had to work very hard in the beginning when we even came to this country. Nothing was given to us lightly, but we cling to it. So perseverance is one of the biggest things that we call abhyas yoga. So don't try to understand this field. It is not in the field of understanding. Just insist on, or just do it whether you understand or not. Have faith and it will be taken care of. This is one of the difficulties that we are talking about in scriptures. I would like to point it out again and again that we may not like this, we may disagree with it, but this is an universal scripture. This applies whatever we are talking about, even though we may be giving example of one group or another because of the incidents that happen, or it may be foremost in our mind when certain thing happened, like recently in India we had the riots, and so we think about it, or recent things that happened 9/11 in United States, so we may speak about it, but our whole intention is that these are the incidents of universal nature, and that it is not limited to India or United States, and that all these things we are speaking of is universal, and we want to learn whatever we can learn from one to the other, so that someday we don't feel or go through the same problem. Now, the next slok number 30, again Lord is saying, Dehi nityam avadhyayam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam sochito marase. This Atman is eternally, cannot be, this indweller is indestructible in case of everybody. There is no question whether it is an animal, whether it is a person who is noble or who is not noble, who is a man, woman, or any kind of person, however he may be, everybody has in them indestructible Atman, or God says, I am myself in them. Therefore, don't worry about anybody or anyone. I know what I am doing. I know what is happening. It is a lila, it is a game, and you are really to play your part. And when we play our part, we should play our part 100%. After all, this is a Maya that He has made, He alone knows. We are not here to understand, but we are here to just play the way our director tells us to do. It is the same thing in movie. The actors and actresses must dance according to the director. Whatever the director says is what they are supposed to do. Similarly, God also pulls the strings. We are like dolls, we just dance at it. That's really the truth. And those who don't dance at the tune of Lord, of course, they suffer. So these are the realities, whether we understand or not. I suppose there is a question about what we have been talking.
You said Leela. So what is this Leela?
This Leela, just a word I just used, I think it is a very interesting word. The Hindu scriptures or the Sanatan Dharma, we have this Bhagavad, and we call that this whole game or sports. In other words, this life should be taken as a sports. And this is the sports of the Lord. Lord has taken these forms and He is playing the game. Sometimes we should accept it that He alone has taken these forms and is playing. So we should take our life as a sports or lila. That means we should enjoy this thing. It is like sports. In sports, somebody loses, somebody wins, somebody may get hurt, but it is the same thing. We have to play the game. It is for the joy. In the joy, we may even suffer sometimes. We may be unhappy, but it is still part of the game. So don't take the sometimes things too seriously. Make it lightly, whether it is to your liking or things happen to your disliking. I think that wise men will take it as a sport, and in sport sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It wasn't the winning and losing in the game, it was the matter, is the intention with which we played. It was the joy of the game. Today we have lost the entirely the joy of the sports. In the sports, we are running after either becoming number one, or we are looking for the money. Even those who are managing are after money. Everything we turn into either lust or greed. And we lose the joy of playing because there is so much tension because I want to win. Winning is the goal. God says no, winning is not the goal. And this certainly will be a shocking news. So winning or losing is not the goal, but playing the game best to your ability and enjoy it. And that is what Lord wants us. In which case everybody is the winner. Even the losers are the winners and the winners are the winners because both of them enjoyed it. And that enjoyment was the fruit of the game. And fruit of the game, enjoyment is given even to those who lose, provided we don't arbitrarily give value that those who are losers are no good and those who are winner are the best. These are the values we have made. God has not made these values that the losers are weaker than this. God said, well, we always have somebody to lose. Today you are loser, tomorrow you will be winner. And those who are winner today will be loser. So winning and losing is not the goal. The joy of the game is the thing. Similarly, in this life, I think that sometimes we are winners, sometimes we lose, sometimes things don't happen our way, sometimes it does. Whatever happens, I think that we should enjoy it, try to make the best of it, knowing that if today it is not a good day, tomorrow will be a better day, things will change, clouds don't remain all the time. So this kind of understanding and then doing the best you can for your in your job or your in duties, whatever the results is considered as a lila. This is what we really mean. And so let's take this whole life as a sports, as a joy, because Sri Krishna Bhagavan himself showed us when he played the lila in Vrindavan that life is for joy. Life has lot more to give, and these little things and duties of the household and all these desires have made us slave that we have lost the joy of working. Working should never be a burden, and yet all of us get bored very soon on any given job, whether it is in the house or whether it is in driving or whether it is on job. We always get bored and tired and frustrated, and this is the thing, we are not making it as a sports. So if we follow certain rules, then we will find that everything we do can provide us the peace and joy, provided we follow the rule, and particularly the one that do your best, don't worry about winning and losing, that is the results. The result is built in the game itself. If you played the game, the result is playing itself and the joy that were given to us. But if we expect money and name and fame, then we'll be frustrated, because very soon somebody will come who will be more superior to us, and then we lose and we will be depressed. Again, we'll be like children going up and down, and our life will be always ruled by like waves, and that is what God wants to avoid, that we should remain balanced, that even in defeat there is a winning, and sometimes the winners are the losers. These are the things we don't understand, but Gita will tell us how to navigate our life in these waves and ultimately reach the shore with a joy. And when I say joy, I don't mean that we will not suffer, but we will not lose the game. We will not be drowned. We will succeed at the end if we will keep this in mind, what we are just talking about. The next slok, Sri Krishna Bhagavan now returns to his early stage or his own view. Until now it was a sort of theoretical knowledge. Atma we have never seen, body we have seen, we cannot really compare. Yet Lord has helped us to understand as much as is possible. One thing in Vedanta, which is the end of the Vedas, there is 4 steps which might be very interesting for us to note. This is universal I am talking about. To realize Atman, to realize that joy, to realize that peace, there are 4 steps. First is discrimination between the real and the unreal, Sat and Asat. Sat is Atman, Asat is body. We have been talking about this, all these sloks. Repeatedly Lord is explaining to us the difference between our Atman and Anatman, that is body. Discrimination is the first step. If we know the difference, then we can proceed. If we don't know the difference, then we are in the dark. Then what do we do after we know that something is real and something is unreal? Like the wheat. If we take wheat, there is chaff. So if we can separate the chaff from wheat, then we can say wheat is real and chaff is unreal. Again, in gold, if it is gold bracelet, then we can say the bracelet, that is name and form, is unreal and gold is real. In the pot, in the mud pot, the pot, that is the name, is unreal. The earth itself, which remains the same, is real. In other words, what was before the pot was formed and after the pot is broken is earth. Earth, the pot came from the earth and the pot goes back into the earth. So that is what we call that the pot then was unreal, because it was momentary, it was transition, it was changing conditions. Anything that changes is considered asat by definition. So if you can remember by definition that anything that changes or dies, like body or a tree or the universe, is unreal. Anything that is unchanging is real. Now if we can understand these two, then everything in the universe is unreal, because everything is changing. And the one behind it is real. That is what we call God. The second step is to renounce the unreal. In other words, it is necessary that the chaff should be renounced, and we will be sticking to the wheat. That is what is nourishing, that's what we need. Now, in this, Mirabai had very nicely put what Shankaracharya once said, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. He said that Brahman is truth, and this Jagat that is constantly changing is Mithya, means something undependable. This was the conclusion of the entire scriptures and discrimination of Shankaracharya. Jagat, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. It is a very prominent sutra in Upanishads. Now, Mirabai in her beautiful, lovely language simply says, Mere to Giridhar Gopal dusaro na koi. For me, Giridhar Gopal is the real. Everything else is unreal. So he says, I don't want anybody else. Dusaro na koi means I don't want anything unreal. Only the real, and that's Giridhar Gopal, or another name for Atman. This then, Dusaro na koi says Mithya, means is no good or is undependable. And who wants something undependable? Even in the world, we don't want anything undependable. We always want dependable. Even when we buy things and we know they are changing, in our mind we know that it should be dependable, or I cannot use it, or I won't be happy. There will be insecurity. There will be fear that a car, if it is not dependable, what will happen? So undependable by nature creates a fear and anxiety that is built in the nature of unreality. But in the reality, we are always secured, we are always safe, we know what we are doing, and we will reach the goal with joy. That is why we are after real. Now, the third step then. First step was to know the difference between real and unreal. Second was to renounce the unreal and then stick to the real, of course. And the third is the six attributes that we must meditate, and this will be coming the next. Now that we are discriminating between real and unreal, how to do that. One thing is to know the difference between the real and unreal, but then how to cling to real and renounce unreal is a different thing. That is what is shown in step number 3. There are 6 attributes that we will have to develop. One is the peace of mind. Second is the control of the body. We've been talking about brahmacharya. Third is uparati, or the controlling the mind or keeping the mind unaffected by external objects and changes. We may see the objects of pleasure, but we may not be agitated inside. So if we can reach that stage that we stay in the middle of the world or in water but don't get affected by water or get wet by water, similarly if our mind remains in the middle of the world but does not get affected by the objects and doesn't upset us or agitate us, like if a beautiful woman will be affecting, or gold ornaments, or a beautiful car, or something that we see, and we can check if we are agitated or we go up and down, then we know that we are not under control. Uparati means we remain unaffected. Fourth is titiksha, means forbearance. We must bear with the situation, as we have often said. And the fifth is faith. Faith is not blind. Faith comes after we have known everything and then we have rejected what is unreal and cling to the real. When intellect itself cannot help us to be happy, then we know that we have real faith in God. That means we are surrendered. And the last is samadhan. That is when we are settled in ourselves. Atmaneva Atmana Tushta, we will come to that slok later on. But what it says is that now you have found peace in ourselves. That is the ultimate stage. As long as you are going to depend on others for your happiness, you have a possibility and a problem that you will be unsettled and you will be affected. You might be agitated. The only time we will be happy and at peace is to go within and feel peace within ourselves. That means we don't depend on our own body also, because our body is nothing but the same thing as an object. And since they are all passing away, if we depend on our body, mind and intellect, then also we are not settled. We are settled only when we realize that we are on Atman, because Atman alone is unchanging, on which we can settle. Supposing we try to settle on a horse, but the horse himself is not settled, and if he is running and if he is chanchal, then we cannot be settled on the horse, because horse himself is not settled. Similarly, the whole world is not settled. It is by nature is changing. So if we ride the world, if we depend on the world, we cannot be settled, because the object on which we are sitting itself is unsettled. So again then we say we can only be settled if the object of our settlement is eternal, unmoving and unchanging. And that is why we are saying that self-settledness means to realize ourselves, what we might call samadhi or moksha. And so these are the 6 attributes. And the fourth is mumukshata, or intense yearning for moksha or love. We must have intense yearning for love. It's like a young man who wants to intensely marry his beautiful girlfriend for the love of it. Then the intense yearning that he has for his girlfriend, similarly we should have the same intensity to love this God who is within us. If we have that intensity, I think that we will have no problem. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.